people are ripped off for football coverage in this country. You know, the fact that we get at the moment, and I realise it would change with the next TV deal, you need a number of subscriptions, which cost a lot of money, and you get to see what 50% of the games is absolutely absurd.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Football Ramble Mailbag. It's Saturday 9th of December and I'm Marcus Speller.
I'm Andy Brassel.
I'm Luke Moore.
And I'm Pete Donaldson. And how do you like that?
Bloody Nora, it's Saturday.
It is.
Oh, best day of the week for a lot of people, Andy.
I love Saturdays.
Do
and
you?
Do you really I mean, I guess you've got to work a lot more than I have to on a Saturday, but I just feel good vibes when I get up on a Saturday. Yeah. I'm off down the DIY store to buy stuff I don't need.
DIY store? So you've changed it from the booze app?
Or Maplins.
Well, Maplins, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you
Maplins,
like wine.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it used to be Maplins.
Pouring one out for Maplins.
Yeah.
Maplins gone.
Maplins?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Andy.
We have not got time for that now.
Nobody has submitted a question about Maplins.
No.
Anyway, welcome one and all to the mailbag.
Yeah.
Quick reminder that if you want to get involved on the mailbag, you can tweet us on Twitter, currently known as X, at Football Ramble. Message us on Instagram, at Football Ramble. And of course, you can email us, show@footballramble.com. We're going to start with this question from Ronnie, who says, after Amazon broadcast every single Premier League game this week, do you think this should be the future? I understand people's objections to the 3 o'clock blackout on Saturdays, but part of me misses the sense of occasion when a Champions League game was broadcast on ITV once a week. Is there such a thing as too much access? Interesting. We do remember, of course, back in the day, Champions League games were much fewer and further between. I mean, it was actually once every 2 weeks, I think it was, when it was, you're talking about in the late 90s, Manchester United treble-winning season.
Like the Ramble at the start.
Yeah. And it was on terrestrial TV, of course, as mentioned there, which is a big change as well.
But without getting too sidetracked with that example, Ronnie is saying, is there too much football if it's on all the time? They show all the games.
So I'll just jump in quickly first, if I may.
You don't have to be quick, brother.
It might not be that quick, actually.
No.
I felt that when I started broadcasting various different day and evening parts, as they say in the terrible parlance of radio, on Talk Sport, I felt there was quite an interesting change, even in the 4 years I was there, between the way we would cover games on the radio would be, we would build up to a game, whoever was going to cover the game would cover the game, and the reaction would be a part of that. And then we would debrief and kind of pick over the bones of it, and the whole process would start again. During that 4 year period, it quite obviously, for me at least, in the role I was doing, went from we lost all that, and it was just bang, game, bang, game, bang, game. Every single night it felt like there was a game. You know, you'd have Saturday, Sunday, Monday night football. You'd have Tuesday, Wednesday would either be whether it be League Cup or Champions League. Thursday night would be Europa League, potentially a League Cup game as well. And then occasionally you'd have Friday night football because they brought that in, I think, the season after I started. So the question is obviously, is there such a thing as too much access? I don't think it's too much access, because I think access is a good thing for people who like the sport. I think that's a red herring. I think it's almost certainly now just too much football, I
think that's the difference, isn't it?
I think because you know, the people who run football are going to be more often than not, essentially it's obsessed with the product and, you know, the money that comes along with the product and the commercial value of the product. It's the thought process just goes, this is great, people like this, let's do more of this, and there's not really any thought beyond that. So to me, it's not the access thing. I think the access is amazing. I think really, if you break it down to its essence, you know, going to a game is amazing for different reasons. But I don't think it's objectively better now in terms of what you get to see than the TV coverage is so good, and the quality of the broadcast is so good now, HD, Ultra HD, and all this access and the camera angles and that kind of stuff. The football itself, you can watch as good now at home. I'm not talking about the experience and about what it means to be a football fan, because that's obviously slightly different. So I think the access is actually good. I don't think you can get too much access. I think for the money people pay, they arguably should get more access.
100%.
So it's more about football than access for me.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. In terms of access. Yeah, people are ripped off for football coverage in this country. You know, the fact that we get at the moment, and I realise it will change with the next TV deal, you need a number of subscriptions which cost a lot of money, and you get to see what 50% of the games is absolutely absurd, really. But I don't know. I think I would totally agree with what Luke says about there is simply too much football. And I think in terms of, it's not just about access to the product, it's about how good the product actually is. And I don't know about you, Pete, I'm feeling that quite a lot at the moment. But what you were saying, Luke, about there being game, it's really a legacy of COVID. And COVID should have changed the football calendar, but it just hasn't.
It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, in fact, on the other hand, I think because the people commercialising football see it as entertainment rather than sport, it's just about keeping the show on the road. And you're right. I think both from a fan's perspective, where you're not really getting the quality of product, and from like our perspective. And I think, quite frankly, when there were games all the time during COVID, which is kind of what we're talking about, isn't it? The fact that, you know, everyone being able to see all the games being, say in Spain for example, for years and years and years, they've staggered kickoffs in a way that you can sit there and watch every game if you want to. There are very rarely two games happening at the same time until you get to the crunch time at the end of the season. What that leads to is actually no ability to absorb the football. It leads to quite poor analysis, if any analysis at all, because you're just watching it and you're on to the next one, as you were saying.
So in Spain, I mean, I presume they do, or in other countries, I love the tradition we have here of Match of the Day, the highlights package at the end of the footballing day, which traditionally is a Saturday, and obviously we have it now on a Sunday as well. I assume in other countries they would have something similar, would they?
Not always.
Okay, so that's it. Okay, what I adore about Saturdays is it is the football day traditionally,
right?
And
it's football day,
yeah. And actually, what I'd like to see with broadcasting is, you're right. I think if there's games on all the time with COVID, it was obviously different in COVID because none of us were doing anything. So you thought, well, at least I've got all this kind of entertainment, if you see what I mean. I'd like far more games now kicking off at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, as is sort of the tradition, and you can watch those games, because you won't be able to watch all these games. You'll pick your team or the game that interests you the most, but you won't be able to absorb the football. And then you have that tradition of later on, you watch Match of the Day. And there's something about that, almost like the sort of unofficial community, if you like. You know that the rest of the country who are into this are all sitting down together about it. I think they do this with American football, don't they?
So American football, because the country is much bigger,
it's
regionalised, and then there's a national game on the Sunday night. So if you were in New England, you might get a Giants game or a Patriots game or whatever. If you're on the West Coast, you might get a Seattle Seahawks game or Chargers game, whatever. And then on the Sunday night, they select a game that's national, that's shown around across the country.
Okay, maybe it's slightly different then. But I mean, I think the Sunday afternoon game is quite good still. I think that's kind of become a bit of a tradition as well. But do you see what I mean, though? If everyone is like, right, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, as was tradition and as still is by and large the case, that's when you can have access to those games. But the early kickoffs, the late kickoffs, that, we've got to travel the length and breadth of the country to be there at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on a Sunday or something like that. I think that you have access, but those 3 o'clock games, you will watch your team or the game that you're interested in the most, but you won't be completely saturated with the football coverage, because you won't be able to watch game after game after game, as you said in Spain.
Now, that's the main objection that I would say the pro-blackout people have had, isn't it? The fact that it will be difficult for lower division teams. I personally don't think that's correct, because I think the way that people support football has totally changed.
If I'm wrong,
but I agree with you. As someone who supports a fourth division team, and that doesn't mean that I speak for all people who support. This is just my opinion as a supporter of a fourth tier team, and as someone who takes my children to the football, for example, I would say, as Luke was saying, there's a massive difference between, for them even, there's a massive difference between going to the game and watching it on TV. And if they've got the opportunity to go to the game, they don't care what game's on telly. They would always rather go. So it's comparing apples and oranges. I don't think it is about that at all. And quite frankly, if League Two or League One teams want more people to come to the game. Charge less to get in. Make it a better experience.
Do you think that the broadcasters have been slightly wrong-footed by the illegal streamers getting more professional?
It's a big part of it, isn't it?
Because beforehand you'd go to a website and you have to click a million different kind of plugins and stuff like that. But now the bloke down the street is watching 3 p.m. kickoff on his telly on a Fire Stick, and there's no adverts, and he's just paying 10 quid a month or whatever illegally. So like it's everything to do with the broadcasters trying to second guess an industry, a cottage industry at this point, who's satisfying people who want to watch their football.
So your argument, presumably then on the back of what Andy's saying, is that people are doing that anyway. So people are doing it anyway.
So they might as well monetize it.
And also, whereas 3 years ago, I could probably access some because I'm part internet.
We know
I can access. I could access, and I think if you've grown up around the internet, you become a bit more. I don't know. You have a bit of a second. Sort of second sight when you see like a pop-up's happening or something's broken down or something like that. But my father-in-law, my dad couldn't. Or my mum couldn't figure out what's gone wrong with this stream sort of thing. But nowadays, this kind of emancipation of like men and women of a certain age can watch football quite easily with these little sticks. You press a button, it's on.
So ultimately, then the point is,
Dave down the road,
it's easy to do it anyway. So maybe they need to stop being outmanoeuvred on that.
Yeah. But what Marcus has suggested that no one else I've heard has really suggested so far is that idea of creating a 3 p.m. Saturday community.
But I think there's a problem with it that you guys haven't covered.
Well, go on then.
And I think you've
gone.
Andy's kind of. I don't actually disagree with what Andy said, but I don't think that's the point. I don't think it's an issue that, for the reasons you've said, for League One, League Two, or even Championship teams. I think the blackout is a real boon for non-league grassroots clubs.
No, but I would say that applies to them as well.
I don't think it does. And the reason I don't think it does is because when the announcement for the new deal, which came out earlier this week, was talked about, and I know this anecdotally anyway, because I know some people at the club local to me where I grew up. I've got a good friend of mine who's a manager at non-league level, a decent non-league level. And I also go to Peckham Town. And I think actually it might not have been the episode you did when you went there. But
I never went back. They didn't have any green tea.
No, exactly, yeah. But it might have been another time I've been there. I might have got confused. It might not have made the edit. But they said something along these lines as well, is that the reality of a non-league club, a grassroots club, when they're playing a game slightly later in the day, or they're playing a game when the FA Cup finals or whatever, they get 300-400 people fewer coming through the gate.
I mean, you've just said the FA Cup final, though. But
it's also when they have to play games in an evening, they'll get far fewer people because people will be watching Champions League games, for example. Okay,
but that's the Champions League. So to respond to your point, also, with that 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon thing, teams playing in the Europa Conference League and all of would still play on the Sunday. I'm not saying that the Premier League has to play everything on that time and that Saturday. You can still have your Sunday games. You can still have all that. But, I mean, is someone who, say, loves going to Peckham Town or wherever, are they really going to go, oh, yeah, but Crystal Palace are playing West Ham today?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they are.
And that's for example, because Crystal Palace are right next door to Peckham.
You've seen, for example, with Dulwich Hamlet, because they've made it a more community. I know people are quite sniffy about it and think it's quite middle class, but basically,
they've got green tea.
Yeah. They do.
But the Dulwich Hamlet example, Andy, is that what Dulwich Hamlet have done, people have missed the point about. They kind of whether it's sniffy or it's middle class or it's not, what Dulwich Hamlet have done, which I never hear this talked about when people talk about Dulwich Hamlet, and for those who are listening who don't know who they are, they're a non-league team in South London who are incredibly successful
at getting people in.
If there's an international break, you have 500 people outside who can't get in, and they're almost an outlier for non-league clubs of that size. The way they've done it is nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that they've taken the time to understand who their audience are.
They engage the community.
And engage with them.
That's why Southend are giving out arm tattoos.
But they're also well-funded, and that stuff also costs money. You're very well saying to my friend who manages Baffin Milton Rovers in Portsmouth, what you want to do is you want to engage with your local community and do this and do that. And he'll say, great, I've got 2 pennies to rub together.
No, that's why you need volunteers. At that level, or at any level, really, where people haven't got a lot of money.
And when are you going to volunteer?
I volunteer in many, many ways.
Yeah.
Volunteer my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, the debate rages on.
So I just, before we move on very, very quickly, I just wanted to say that it's interesting to me that the big takeaway from this new deal, which runs from 2025 to 2029, is that not just the money, because the money's obscene and it's actually maintained its value fairly well given the state of the economy, I would say, is that they've preserved the 3 p.m. blackout again. So at least until 2029 now, 5.5 years' time, we're still going to have no games at all in what you suggested. That's not going to happen.
And that then forces games to be at different times and blah, 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 blah. And, you know.
I think less football, but more access would be my short answer to Ronnie's question.
That's not
fair.
Not ridiculous. Andy.
We've got one here from Tom. Excluding England games, spells.
Wow.
What football match would you change the result of?
He's done well to say excluding England games.
I think we all know exactly why he's done that.
Yeah. I think most of us would probably choose an England game, but we're not going to choose England game.
Yeah.
We're going to choose
We
England.
can't.
Welcome, Final 66.
Welcome.
Can we stop fucking going on about it?
What, 2-1 in full time?
Yeah.
And it's a 5-0 home battering by West Germany. Get on with it.
Get on with it.
You didn't deserve it. Outrageous.
Peter.
Put that in your song.
Yeah.
Peter, which result would you change?
The one I spent a considerable amount of money on at Wembley last year season, I think, please.
Really, it'd be the cup final with Newcastle would win it.
I think even the Hawaii away at 5-0 might have. I think that plastered over some cracks. Yeah, that's what you do, isn't it?
Do you know what?
Emotionally, with a lot of people who sort of enjoyed Kevin Keegan's entertainers, I just think it was significant, but it was indicative of bigger problems at St James's Park at the time. So I think you look back and you sort of go, I'm glad that happened, but fundamentally you haven't won anything.
Yeah, I think that one result genuinely did pop into my head about this was when Manchester United went to St James's Park and won 1-0 with that Cantona.
Yes, same.
Are you going to say that because
because
had Newcastle won that game and been quite convincing, you never know, and so on. It was sort of fairly early on in the season, or it wasn't like in the last month or two of the season.
It was like March, wasn't it?
Oh, was it March? Was it?
Yeah, it was late.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It was like that was the bit where the title tied.
But I suppose that's my point. Anyway, you whenever it was, because like.
It was the 4th of March.
Yeah, okay. So I should have known better then.
Who gave the assist to Eric Cantona?
It was a cross from
Giggs?
Phil Neville.
Fizzer.
Yeah.
Huh.
Giggs was a very safe bet.
Why did he ask it?
Yeah.
He's not wanting to mention Ryan Giggs' name, is he?
Here's another safe bet that if you really think about it, you'll be able to answer straight away, all of you.
Yeah.
Who was the referee?
Paul
Durkin.
David Ellery.
Ah.
You had a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Because in our minds, either one of those two might referee every single game.
But I
Rennie?
remember it came from the left, you
Yeah.
see, and I thought, well, it's not. You're not going to go Dennis Irwin. You know?
No.
Anyway, so that game.
Well, because you think that would have been a sliding doors moment. Newcastle may have gone on to do what they.
So let's say it would have been.
They lost
Yeah.
1-0 away at Southampton that season. Southampton came 17th, so that would have been an easy one to win.
You can change that one. but
Let's all change a Newcastle game each.
Yeah.
So they won the title in
well,
96.
Andy, I'll let you because if Newcastle had won that game, let's say they go on and win the title, it would be wonderful. I know it's Keegan-esque that they didn't win the title, but
an almost pure title win, even though they did have a lot of money.
I just think that would be such a cherished memory for so many people, and not just Newcastle. I think for all of us.
I don't think it changes much, though, does it? In the grand scheme.
No,
of
I think
things.
it does. I think that winning the title, I think it does. Certainly for Newcastle United.
Well, of course, it changed it for them.
But if in
It
this
changes
scenario,
Keegan's path totally.
yeah,
doesn't it?
indeed. I think he gets the England job quicker. I think that
he quits in a different toilet.
you know if you're.
Trap 3.
Yeah.
I think that if you were to offer this to Keegan, how there's what is there some sort of magical situation? You go, there you are, Keggy. You've just got to open that door.
Yeah.
And then the title will be yours, and
Yeah.
opens the wrong door and falls down the
Yeah.
triple. So, but my actual answer would be, even though I've just sort of gone on there, is I would love to change the Europa League final, Fulham and Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fulham to win that because
It was a strong charge, wasn't it?
It was brutal.
Completely
it was absolutely
against
brutal.
Look, Fulham were, Moore was injured, but Atletico Madrid Forlan and Aguero up front.
But what it did is it really showed the shortcomings of that system where a team can come down into the Europa League and really, in that case, blow a great story out of the water. Well, a story that Fulham had fucking earned as well, by the way.
When you say blow it out of the water, I mean, they took to 117th minute to score, and it was...
Which makes it worse.
Well, I suppose, Fulham were playing for penalties. There's no two ways about that. But, so when Fulham were down in the semi-final to Hamburg, and you think, you're crashing out. Semi-final is amazing, but you don't really. Only the fans and maybe a few others remember the semi-final. I think you've got to get to the final. I think there's something about getting to the final where you play the most amount of games you can. So a final is there's. I think it sticks in the memory way more than a semi-final for the most part. But of course, if you win it, that would have been their first major trophy they'd have won. It would have just meant so much to it would have been such a story for a little club like Fulham.
Yeah.
To win that, I
think. Yeah, having said what I just said, Newcastle winning the Premier League in that golden period they had, and Fulham winning the Europa League at that point. They are great stories that football would have been richer for.
Yeah.
Paul Bresson with a winner's medal. Yes, please.
Yeah. Roy Hodgson doing a David Moyes after the.
Darren Huckabee would have got one.
Danny Murphy getting more media gigs.
There you go. Even more.
And I like Danny.
We love Danny. We do. Luke, what's yours?
I went for one that I thought about not doing because I was almost entirely sure you were going to pick it.
Go on.
And the one I thought would change because I think it's actually a service I'm doing for the whole of football. And dare I say...
Cool, it's a big build-up.
Humanity as well.
Go on.
I'll give you a couple of clues and I bet you get it straight away.
Al Nasser beating...
Yeah, Ronaldo's club in Saudi Arabia only won a game 4-0 and I'd like them to win it 5-0.
Are you going maybe Simeone Atletico?
Nope, I'm going the quarterfinals of the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
I'm going. Uruguay beat Ghana 4-2 on penalties, denying them the chance to be the first ever African team to be in the semi-final of the World Cup.
And
it was horrific.
You're spot on.
And they duked out a 1-0 draw in the last minute, I think, of extra time. It was certainly towards the end of extra time. Luis Suarez handled the ball on the line to stop Ghana scoring. Asamoah Gyan then missed the penalty and Uruguay won on penalties. It was the most villainous behaviour and result, I think, certainly, probably I've ever seen in international football.
Big shame.
I can't think of anything that's more than this. I mean, you could talk about Battiston getting butchered by Schumacher.
No, but that was before our time.
And this was like... Ghana were already the bad guys, right? Ghana were already like reveling in their own. The reason I think it was so villainous is because they were reveling in their villainous status. They kind of embraced it and they liked it.
We do love them for that as well.
But I think
not in that moment though.
It was such a bend the rules to breaking point situation where actually
never bent the rules, he broke them.
But it's almost like the rules didn't do the job they're supposed to do in that case.
Yes.
Because they got an advantage from it in the end.
There wasn't sufficient rulage to contain the villainy.
I don't know what you would have done. Maybe
that passage of play as well.
Yeah,
there's a chance to put it in. It's a proper scramble. You go, it's painful to watch.
It's something. I'm not going to kind of cast.
It's a great answer to the question.
I'm not going to cast this as someone. We're British or English or we would never have done this. I'm not saying that. It's very much down. It's down to the individual. But I think there are. I would say maybe north of 90% of top-level players wouldn't have done that.
Well, they might not have thought of doing it.
Maybe not.
But I think it's a great answer, and it's funny actually because when he said excluding England games, I think in my mind I just wrote off international football.
That's as far as it goes for you, is it?
Well, we're going to finish, Marcus, if that's all right with you, with a positive refereeing story from Lars. Not that one.
Could be that one.
I mean, it could be that one because the subject line is 80-year-old Norwegian referee. Our protagonist is Jan Kjell Johansen. He's turned 80 years old, but he's still refereeing. He's been a referee in both football and handball for 57 and 34 seasons, respectively. Is that the same time? Is that kind of like he switched halfway through?
Do you know what I felt when I first read that? I thought he must hate his family.
I just want to be out.
Absolutely hate his family.
Getting 20 quid on a cold Sunday morning. Unbelievable. He's refereed in the Norwegian top flight in football and the European Cup in handball. So he is and was a very competent referee in his time. On Wednesday, October 25th, he refereed his 5,000th match, according to himself. So that's around...
Is he
Romario-esque, isn't it? So that's around 3,500 football matches and 1,500 handball matches. The match was an under-15s game in my local area and was his 13th fixture this year. The 4 match officials for this game were a combined 251 years old, and including Jan Kjell himself and his son Anders.
Oh,
39.
his son's involved. That's nice.
His son was also a Norwegian top flight referee in his time, but retired at 35. When Jan Kjell is not walking quickly around a football football pitch, his own words. He is mentoring young referees and has twice sent parents home who couldn't behave themselves this season.
Yeah.
He is a true legend of the game. Round of applause for Jan Kjell Johansson.
Yeah, I tried to Google him, but I couldn't find much about him.
No.
He just keeps a low profile. He's always on the pitch.
Start
maybe.
a blog, write a book. You're 80 for crying out loud. Come
Apparently
on.
the other week he sent off Dickie Borthwick. For those who remember that
Explain
reference.
that. The world's oldest footballer.
He was at a time, I think he was, 78, and he was still playing in a league in, I want to say the West Country.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like Gloucestershire or somewhere.
Apparently, he's from Weymouth. I'm looking him up now. He's 8.
Okay.
And when this article was written in the Sport
I've
Gazette,
gone too high because it's Dorset then.
Yeah, I don't know what year this was written. But he's 84 and still playing.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, I don't want to be rude, but is he really still playing?
What does the article say?
It says that he's the oldest footballer in the world.
There you go.
And he's been playing football for 78 years since he was
Fun.
6.
Yeah.
But that's, I can remember playing Sunday league football, and occasionally you'd get a really old ref.
Yeah.
We had one a couple of weekends
Did you?
ago. Last weekend,
and
he
they,
was...
and they'll
he
just
was-
referee the game in a completely different way.
Yeah.
By which I mean they'll let everything go because they've seen it all.
Well, he seemed to be very over the sin bin new policy, so he sin bin about 2 players.
It's probably quite difficult to. That's the one thing that's kind of underrated about grassroots refereeing, is there's quite a lot of new stuff that comes in all the time.
Yeah.
And sin binning, which they trialled at grassroots level and are now going to bring in, it feels a bit odd that they get essentially at best semi-pro officials to look after it first.
Yeah.
Because it
And-
really should be a professional thing.
And I would say, we had a chat with the referee, came over and basically explained what they've been asked to focus on this season.
Oh.
Like we were proper footballers or something. I gave him the finger. Get that.
What was it? What was the?
It was encroaching on free kicks, standing in front of free kicks, and if you stand in front of a free kick and the player boots the ball at you to sort of go get out of the way, they were gonna basically turn the free kick around effectively. I think that was the ruling.
And what were you in goal at the time?
No, I was right back. It's more chance to make more damaging moves, one would
Yeah.
suggest.
Never say that again.
Drew 5-all.
5-all.
2 of them were my fault.
Only 2.
The Dawson tax is a very consistent tax in Sunday League football, isn't it?
It is.
You
It's
always,
like a little, yeah.
He always puts at the end
Yeah.
of his chat, like normally, if I say to you, Marcus, did you play football the weekend? Yeah, how'd you get on? Blah, blah, fine. That's it. Pete always will put an addendum on every single weekend report by saying how many goals were exactly his fault.
But even
Yeah.
if he didn't, even if he was not a fault for any of the goals, we'll go, yeah, kept giving the ball away.
Yeah.
There'll always be something.
Hello to Dan, who Facebook messaged me saying that he was playing on the opposition. He listens to Ramble.
Nice.
Please
Anything about your performance?
don't tell anyone about my performance.
Anyone about your performance? Did he get any goals himself?
Maybe profited.
I think he came on at half time and then they shipped about 4 goals. So sounds like Dan had a bad day at the office, same as me.
I like it if he had said, I was lining up to play Sunday football
That's
last
so fake.
weekend. I saw you and my eyes lit
Get
up.
off.
Go back to Jan Kjell Johansson. You know as well that full referee kit and he's getting his legs out.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
100%.
Doesn't matter.
No matter how cold it is.
And it's Norway as well.
Yeah.
I love that the old school boys. No. Any chance to get my knees, do a bit of air to the knees.
They make them tough up there because I go to New England very regularly and it gets very cold there. And a lot of my family who are a bit older, the conversations quite consistently are like, do you know what? I'm not sure how many more winters I can do up here. I think I might move south.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
and they'd be in their 50s, maybe in their early 60s.
That's why Pete moved down from Hartlepool.
It is absolutely
True, yeah.
right, yeah.
But the fjord water keeps you all young and stuff, doesn't it?
They're
It's
just
different
tough.
in Norway,
They're
isn't
just
it?
tough. I mean, 80 years old, you're still getting up there early and doing your thing.
Absolutely. He is.
Although isn't handball played inside?
But he's still
Yeah.
doing the. We're not focusing on that.
So
I mean,
do
it's the
half
idea.
of football and then half of handball to warm yourself up.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea was 34 years ago, he thought, football's a young man's game.
I'm
and
moving
started
yeah.
handball and then just never got around to giving it up.
Maybe he's just really good at giving handball, like fat yellow cards and stuff.
Handball!
Handball!
Yeah.
Handball!
Right, there's a game for you.
Set everyone off.
He'd never have been busier than in the modern game.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
Yeah.
there we are, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble Mailbag. We'll be back with another one of these next week, of course, because we're now a weekly baby. Do get in touch with us. Remember to tweet us on X at Football Ramble. Message us on Instagram at Football Ramble. And, of course, email us, show@footballramble.com. And join us on Monday, of course, for the Ramble, where we review the weekend's actions, or the weekend's action. You're familiar with that routine. And don't forget to subscribe on your podcast app, everybody. Look, what have you got on your screen?
Whoa.
Harry Maguire. What's
Read
that?
it. Read it.
Harry Maguire wins the Premier League Player of the Month award for November. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Fun.
course.
Just saying, I
and
thought
games.
something you might want to open the show with on Monday.
A win's a win's a win.
Exactly.
Thank you, Luke Moore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Petey D.
Ta-ta.
Thank you, Andy B.
Stop.
And thank you, Jan Kjell Johansson. Good luck in whichever match you're refereeing this week.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.